Well, it's the easiest thing in the world to be a good politician, and Andrew Yang is going to do really well. He already figured it out. Just simply promise people money and you'll get their votes. So this recent tweet he put out saying, you know what I'm pretty sure works on a lot of problems? Money. Okay, this is quite literally the type of statement you might hear from a 5-year-old. Now, it is true, in one's own personal life, if you perform marketable and productive actions that benefit society, you can make money, and that money is helpful. But that's not what Andrew Yang is talking about here. He is talking about just giving every 18 to 64-year-old $1,000 a month. By the way, that'll end up costing around $2 trillion a year. And to just give you a little perspective, there was some research done in 2017 by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, and it said a UBI of $10,000 a year for 300 million Americans would end up costing about $3 trillion a year. Now that's for 300 million Americans, which is a significantly higher number of people than the number of people who would get Andrew Yang's UBI, because Yang is only paying people who are 18 to 64 years old, but he is paying them a bit more than the study I just mentioned. He's giving them $12,000 a year, not $10,000 a year. But it should be pointed out that Social Security isn't going anywhere because everyone over 64 years old isn't getting Andrew Yang's UBI. And Social Security in 2018 cost us $988 billion. So Andrew Yang's UBI is more expensive than Social Security. And does anyone with a thinking brain at this point think Social Security is the pinnacle of fiscal responsibility? Isn't it relatively well known that Social Security is quite literally the same structure as a Ponzi scheme? And so you're going to have Social Security with the addition of Andrew Yang's UBI, which will put it all close to $3 trillion a year. We can't afford it. But also think about this. What does Andrew Yang and other proponents for UBI claim? Well, they say this will take a lot of pressure off people. It'll allow them to do more things, not worry so much, have some flexibility. And that's true, at least for a little while. But we're talking about hundreds of millions of people getting this money. That means you are guaranteed to have an extremely large number of people who might have otherwise said, you know, we want children, but let's plan it out a little bit more. Let's be responsible about this. Let's make a little bit more money doing productive things that society wants. Let's actually strategize having a family a bit. Well, the UBI will guarantee that some segment of those hundreds of millions of people, I am not saying everyone, but even a small percentage is a few million people having more kids that they otherwise wouldn't have had. And now you will soon have more people that you need to pay this UBI to. So that initial cost of $2 trillion I mentioned is highly unlikely to stay the same. It will increase. You will have to pay out to more people over time. Not to mention the inflation this would cause, as both the velocity, which is how quickly money is changing hands, and quantity of money increases throughout the economy, which of course all of that puts a huge upward pressure on prices. And what happens then? Pretty soon $1,000 a month isn't even going to come close to cutting it anymore, and you've got to raise the UBI. And what do you raise it to? Well, I'm not sure, but probably a nice sounding number. Which leads me to another small point. How did Andrew Yang come up with $1,000 a month? How did it just so happen that a nice, square, psychologically soothing number like 1,000 becomes his war cry? He didn't even try and make it seem like he put this through any sort of a formula or any sort of a model, right? He doesn't say $1,041 exactly, which would at least make it seem like he thought about this and took some specifics into consideration. But no, again, it's the sort of answer a 5-year-old would give. How much should we give everyone? $1,000 a month. But I digress. That's not the most important point I'm making here. The point is, as I said before, you're probably going to have a growing population due to the very temporary high people feel off of the UBI. And the UBI will not be able to stay the same. So we will all be paying more taxes for a higher and higher payout for more and more people. I see problems. Problems that Yang's solution of just money I don't think is going to be very helpful. After all, how many problems has the federal government just thrown money at? Yet instead of getting better results, things get worse, or remain the same, although it's still worse since we're dumping tons of money into it. We've done this with education, huge increases in money spent and no results. The war on drugs, huge amounts of money spent for the past several decades, yet we're going through an opioid epidemic right now, which is odd because I thought that money was the solution, but of course it isn't. politicians and Yang never think of unintended consequences? Or how about the war on poverty, where poverty was coming down before we started shoveling money at the problem, and then when we began the funding, the poverty rate just levels off while our spending skyrockets. So for Yang to point to just money as a solution is frankly naive. Money is a part of it, but to suggest that most of our ills will be gone if government just cuts a check for everyone is so simplistic. It's the same solution that government has given us time and time and time and time again, with pitiful results. But that has got to be it for now. Like and subscribe because that's just awesome of you. And later on.